Mr. Tria is your everyday typical bloke who enjoys going to the gym, listening to music, watching movies and traveling. But when passion meets the most unique of ideas, the Tria group of companies and society stores comes to life. Born and raised in the western part of Kenya and being strong in academics, Trushar went abroad to further his studies but had a burning desire to come back to Kenya in order to join and grow the family business and fulfill his entrepreneurial ambitions.
I'm very proud to be born in Kitale, so that's hometown. That's where I was born on the 29th of November 1986, which means I just turned 29 2 days ago. Born and brought up in Kitale, where I spent most of my childhood and primary. Did most of my secondary schooling in Nairobi. Went abroad to Manchester in UK to get my university education. I worked there for almost another 3-4 years. So I spent about 7 years abroad, and finally decided, obviously, to come back home where there's just so much opportunity, and this is where I've really thrived when I started my businesses.
However, 1 year down the line, Trushar realized this was not to be, as his growth and potential was being limited by certain members of the family, and he was not prepared to compromise on where he wanted to go in life. So he made the decision to leave the family business and move to Nairobi to start Tria Group. This is where his journey as an entrepreneur started.
At a very young age, at the age of 7, 8, I started a book library business, whereby books I'd finish reading, they'd be of no use, so I'd start renting them out in class. So I'd start making money from actually charging people different small amounts for just reading, and it would pass on to the next person and the next person. So for me, it was just a passion for reading. Again, that's why. But then after I was done with the book, there was no need for it. So that's how the whole entrepreneurship thing started. But I stepped it up when I started selling these sports biscuit cartons to the boarders, because I was a day scholar in a boarding school. So where it was real business, and I think I was about 10 years old, I would get goods on credit from our family shop, come and sell it in school, sell it at a cheaper price than the kiosk at the school, and benefit my student. But I did all that not because of the purposes of making money, but because I enjoyed being able to make a difference. It was about, okay, on this side, I've been able to get my friends to buy the same product at a cheaper price. So whatever they're able to save, we're able to spend it on other things. So I think it was after so many years when I needed self-inspiration, and I talk about the fact that everything comes down to first one question. When you wake up in the morning, do you inspire yourself? That's the first and most important thing. Because if you don't have faith and belief in yourself and in what you do, then how are you going to go out there and motivate other people who work with you? Everything starts from within and flows on the outside. So the first journey of entrepreneurship, actually goes back to when I was a child.
Seeing opportunities where others see a challenge is one of the characteristics that define successful entrepreneurs. This made this young CEO create a solution for a gap that he saw in the advertising sector.
So Tria has a very interesting story in terms of, it goes back to university, and it's about being able to see opportunities where other people see challenges. Spending so much time abroad, I couldn't afford a car. I was a student, and at that time, in my main form of public transport was buses and rail and everything. And you see ads everywhere, all over the place, in terms of on the buses, inside, outside, on the taxis. So I thought to myself, this is brilliant. It's a moving medium. Most of the outdoor, when you go out of your home, everything is on the move. People, vehicles, nothing stands still. Okay? So I thought to myself, if everything out there is in motion, why is it that all the media that we have in Kenya out there is static in terms of billboards, street poles? They're there, but they're just at one place. But when we go out of our homes or out of our offices, we're not stationary, we're mobile. So the only way to capture this consumer on the move is to be able to speak to them on the move. And hence the whole transit media idea came from just being a student. And I was about 19 at that time. And then I would be able to put 2 and 2 together when I would come back to Nairobi, come back home. And as I told you, while other people will see chaos in the public transport, a lot of disorganization, I saw an opportunity there. And that's what entrepreneurship is about. Can you see opportunities where people see challenges? Where everyone else sees a glass half empty, are you able to see it glass half full?
Tria in Kenya has worked with over 30 clients within a year. This includes some of the world's biggest companies and brands. Tria in Tanzania is still at infancy stage, but has already got 4 clients on board. Retail has been a lifelong passion of Trushar that came from his upbringing in a retail shop environment. From a very young age, he was already helping out in terms of the roles of cashiers, arranging goods on shelf, serving customers, engaging employees. So to him, the idea for operating retail shop was nothing but fun.
Society stores is like still it's like my gigantic baby. It's still a baby because it's only 1 year old. Tria is coming to 3. Society stores is only just a year old. So it's still a baby. But the size of the business in 1 year has become so big. That's why I call it a gigantic baby. We started Society Stores. Last year, November 27th, is when I opened my first store in Thika. And we had 50 to 60 people starting with us. I will close this year, December 2015, within 1 year having reached 4 stores. So in 1 year, we have quadrupled our size. We started with 50 to 60 people. We're going to close the year with about 380 to 400 people.
In accessing capital to begin the Society Stores was started purely from pulling all the profits that Tria had made in its first full year and reinvesting it back to buy the retail business. This being a calculated risk whereby Trushar had to put the stakes of one company to build another.
The issue of financing comes last. Yeah, this is after having planned yourself, after having thought about what you want to do, how you want to do it, how you want to go about it, laying down the strategy. Yeah, this is where I come to, and I think this is where it's interesting. I come to what I personally believe in. Yeah, are my 5 P's of entrepreneurship that ultimately unlocks that 6th P. And I'll explain. To me, you first have to have the passion. That's the first P. Number 2, the purpose. Why do you want to do it? Number 3, you have to have the persistence. Even if you keep getting rejected, can you keep going forward? Even if you keep getting knocked down, can you rise up and walk again? So that's number 3. 4 then is the issue of planning. Can you think, write down what is your unique selling point? What makes you different? Who are your customers? What products do they want? Who are your suppliers? How will you get the product or the service? That's the 4th one. The 5th one is your people. Do you have the right team with you? That's the 5th P. Now if you put all this together, it finally unlocks the 6th P, which is the profit. Most of us end up putting the profit and the money issue first, and that already is a barrier.
For Trushar, starting early meant he practically learnt business and life lessons in 5 years ahead of his time. This meant failing early, learning from his mistakes early, and finally achieving success early as well.
I still say I'm far off being called successful. When people say you're successful, I say no. I'm currently failing, but I'm failing successfully, and one day I will be successful only. Right now I am still failing and I'm learning. And the fact that I'm learning is what's making me reach towards success. People forget that. Yeah? You cannot have success without having experienced failure. They'll go hand in hand. So for me, I've started early. So I will learn early, I will fail early. I have got myself burnt so many times. This has been one of the toughest years for me, from both the personal and professional level. But as the year is ending, I'm able to see light at the end of the tunnel.
Getting people to accept any new idea or business is never easy. More so, if you have a company made up of a diverse people with different values and culture.
Some of the most challenging yet satisfying objectives or things is actually about managing people. It will bring the best and the worst out of you, because every person is different, every culture is different. Yeah. So as I keep saying, throughout this year, especially with society stores, we've put together a team from zero. It's not that a culture of society stores existed. It's not that we knew how everyone was or was going to behave. And I think this in itself, the human dynamism, the personalities, when everything comes together, when you have these 300 people with 300 different personalities coming from 10 different tribes come together into one unit, that process, it's not an easy process, because everyone has their own opinion, everyone has their own way of doing things. And it doesn't mean that the other person is right and the other person is wrong. But it's about being able to respect, understand, and empathize with those different opinions. It's about being able to say, celebrate the diversity, acknowledge the differences and say, this is what my organization thrives on. Now sometimes I would not see eye to eye with certain people, or internally there's always going to be conflicts, but in business. But as long as they're able to be resolved constructively, and then it's good for a business.
Having charted his way to the top, he definitely is able to share a piece of his cake in terms of advice to those who want to venture into entrepreneurship.
Entrepreneurship is living a few years of your life like most people won't, so that you can spend the rest of your life like most people can't. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to work very hard. Very hard meaning you choose. Do you work for the first half of the day or the second half of the day? Don't expect anything for granted. Don't expect a silver spoon on the table. It's not going to happen. The biggest barrier we have is the fact that we set limits to ourselves. Those who grow in leaps and bounds, because every time they set themselves a target, not a limit, a target. There's a difference. With limits, it's negative. With targets, it's positive. Set yourself a target. Set yourself a goal. When you get there, push that. Keep pushing yourself. I always believe not growing in a slow way. I think the best way is in leaps and bounds. But you'll only do that by keeping your focus on one thing only. Start. For me, it was media first, before it became retail. I always wanted to do retail. So start with one thing. Focus on it. Work hard at it. And from there, you'll be able to carve your own path of life. Yeah? As President Obama said, our destiny is not written for us, but by us. So you have to write your own story. You have to have your own happy ending.
Trusha is a firm believer that the biggest fear you should have in life is not doing enough with it, but to be able to have the courage or mindset to take the risk with the idea and action. You have to break yourself free in order to experience your true fullest potential, no matter what age you are.